right out of the gate, we made the dashboard. It's never happened before. Right out of the gate. So we're on the dashboard like from minute one, and the guest hasn't even arrived. And there's a couple of things that happen there, and this is what I think's happened. I've been promoting it for 3 days. People know it's on. It's a very good hack for what Twitter Spaces could become. We made the dashboard straight away. You know, we've got 32 people on the call from a standing start. So that I reckon while we're waiting for Annemarie to come up as co-host, let's give Kiki a 100 for all those cool. Please just go crazy for Kiki. Everyone give Kiki a 100 for all those great images, because we're trying what we call today a stats and chats. We're not only doing the stats with Diacon, we're also going to try and create a chat room, because Twitter doesn't have a chat room, right? So we're trying to make our own magic, aren't we? And so with that in mind, Annemarie is here, and apologies for putting you on the spot here, Annemarie, but we got 32 people waiting to hear your golden words.
Amazing. And I think it's the collaborative community that everyone's here to hang out with. So an honour to be here today. How are you, Keith? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. And you're on your roadcaster, yeah?
Yes, I am.
And is it recording?
It is. So I was going to just let you know I am recording, because I know we've got a couple of places that are recording, which is great.
Yeah. So now that we've actually got a very active room and we've got the guest in, I'm going to take a leaf out of Gia's book yesterday and make the first part of the content sort of like an interview masterclass style, because that was so useful. Yesterday's show was great, and that will become a podcast in a few days. But Annemarie Cross and I have known each other since 2008, when we did a show on Blog Talk Radio. And Blog Talk Radio was you ringing in on your phone to chat with people on the internet. I mean, sound familiar? This is 2008, right? People are saying Twitter Spaces is new and all this, but it's been around for 12 years. So anyway, Annemarie and I did a show for 2 years, every Monday at 10 o'clock. We were career counsellors at that time. We taught people to write resumes and go for jobs and build their confidence. And we just wanted people to have a job they wanted rather than just something to pay the mortgage. That was a great learning experience for us. And Annemarie has subsequently kept going with the podcasting vibe and is now affectionately known as the podcasting queen. So given that Annemarie is recording, if you want to know more about what she does or how we can turn a Twitter space into a podcast, I want you to follow her and ask her for the recording, because she's taken charge of that. You can technically record on Twitter, but the function is really bad. Hope we've got no one from Twitter in today. But, technically it doesn't work very well. The quality's poor, it only lasts 30 days, and you can't download the file. So effectively it's pretty useless. But it is better than nothing, because you can record. And everyone will get this feature in the next few weeks if you don't already have it. So Annemarie's taken the lead there in recording on her Rodecaster, which is a device made by Rode, an Aussie company. And I'm recording on a site called Headliner, headliner.ai. It's a piece of tech that works on your PC, and you get the transcript, you get the audio, and they have this piece of tech in the back that you can turn it into short videos. So I haven't tried this site yet. I'm trying it for the first time today. But I want these shows to be a 101 series. We're recording, we're editing, we're hosting, we're podcasting. We're creating our own magic in an environment where, Twitter doesn't have all the tools at our disposal. So with that in mind, Annemarie, tell us a little bit about your podcasting journey, and most importantly, let's go with the first question. How do you record these sessions and indeed record your podcast?
Great question, and great to have everyone here today. And as you said, we started our podcasting journey back in 2008. And I don't even think we were calling it a podcast back then. Maybe kind of dropped that term every now and again, but we really kind of thought of it as online radio. But we did do that for 2 years. And when you kind of became the Twitter dude, the Twitter guru, I sort of continued to podcast along the way. But one of the things that we struggled with, and one of the things that I've been been developing through trial and error really is how to leverage a podcast to build a community of your ideal clients. A lot of my clients, and I was and you were back then, Keith, a coach, how can we use a podcast as a way not just to build visibility and build, our reputation as a trusted authority, but also begin to nurture our ideal clients, listeners into leads. And that's really where I love to sit, more so on the message, more so on monetization. And when I talk about monetization, I'm not talking about external sponsors. I'm talking very much around monetizing your own message through thought leadership, through nurturing those listeners into leads. And it's an incredible platform. And now when you, Keith, introduced me to Twitter Spaces, I only needed to participate in one space to realize how powerful this space was. And just like any technology, it is a technology. We want to find out how can we leverage it in what we're doing already. Maybe it's a completely new platform that you're delving into, but how can you integrate it into what you're doing already to continue building know, like, and trust, continue building reach, your reputation, and ultimately your revenue. And I think this is a powerful platform. How exciting that it's still continuing to be developed, and if as a collaborative we can even influence the Twitter developers to create things that we know are powerful, I think that's really exciting too. But how I'm recording, I'm running this through my Rodecaster Pro and recording it directly onto Audacity. Now, the fact that you're using a different platform, Keith, Headliner, I'm wondering if I wanted to, I could do both. I could have it transcribed at the same time through that Headliner technology as well as recording through to Audacity.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm sure that we could. So, there's multiple different ways that we could use that. And it really is limited to your imagination, which is why these spaces are so good, because I'm sure someone will share something, hey, I'm doing this, and hey, I'm doing that we can take and go, well, if I tweak this, I can adopt that. You know what I am trying to find out? So if anybody on the spaces today can help me with this, I want to know, how can I also integrate my phone into StreamYard so that I'm thinking if I interview a guest and stream at the same time while also creating a Twitter space, imagine if we could also have the deeper conversation, which is where, Twitter spaces is so wonderful, continue that, but also stream across different platforms too. So I haven't quite figured out that.
Let me pick up on that. Can I pick up on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So what you've said there is really amazing. I'm using Headliner, and let's cross-reference. You can certainly do Headliner and record on Audacity. At this stage, we know for sure, that StreamYard does not offer this syncing facility yet. It's almost impossible to get StreamYard to talk to Twitter Spaces. Almost impossible. In fact, it is impossible. But a very good friend of ours in Ireland, Blockmuse, has used Restream. I'll send you a file for this. In fact, I'll put it in the nest. He has actually found... You were on that call.
Mm-hmm.
With Blockmuse, and it was actually the conversation we had that day that prompted that particular experiment, which has subsequently gone ballistic because Blockmuse, who's very big on blockchain and NFTs, he has found a way to send Twitter Spaces to Twitter Live via Restream. And he sends them to Twitter and to YouTube and to Twitch. So I'll find that particular thing. So that might be a very good place to start.
Yeah.
But I know for sure, because I've been asking them, Restream and StreamYard are not that excited about social audio yet, and they're not really engaged in it.
Yes.
But do you want to keep going? Look, I might, given that you've asked that question, I might run the room and use a bit of a loose format, because you've asked the question, and I think it'll be a really interesting one to run the room on while we're talking. So why don't I throw to Pixie on this, because Pixie is a podcasting expert as well. So 2 questions, Pixie. One is, what do you use to record? Can you share your process based on the fact that we're asking that first question? And second of all, have you found a way to get StreamYard or Restream or other technologies to sync with what we're doing?
So I haven't used StreamYard or anything, but I'm sure that you could do it, especially through your laptop, because you can listen in to the Twitter stream through your desktop. I'm sure if you did it that way and then spoke through your phone, that StreamYard would be just fine. I use two different things. To record my Twitter Spaces, which I've been doing for 6 months now. I use either a Zoom H4n recorder like you guys, or I can go directly to Twitter and get my information every 30 days. So every 30 days, it's clunky. It's not instant. It's not now. But if you have the technology to be able to record through your phone or through like a Zoom reader, you're going to get that information right now, and you don't have to wait for the recording button. You don't have to wait for Twitter, because you'll already have it and be able to edit it and put it up as soon as possible. And I think that's going to be a lot of things for a lot of people.
Let me just decode on what you've said there, and this is really cool, because we do need to acknowledge two things. One is everyone will get the recording button eventually, Android and iOS. So if you don't have it, don't worry, you will get it eventually. And the second thing is it is technically possible, and I say technically because it's not easy. You can technically request your files for the last 30 days, and you get a big brain dump. It's about 10 gig. Like, it blows your head apart when you see it. In fact, Pixie, can you share? You actually had a post of what the actual files look like. And so you can technically do it. All you have to do is just ask Twitter for it, and they'll send it to you within 24 hours. And if you've got the courage and the stamina to go through all of your posts from the last 90, 60, 30 days, you will actually find it. And with a little bit of luck, you'll be able to convert it to a usable file. I haven't been that courageous with that, and I just freaked out. It was about a 10 gigabyte file. Slowed my computer down for the whole day. So it's not a very useful idea, but it is possible. So I want to ask Jason about this while we got it, because two things. Tell us about your podcast. I don't mind if people go to that one as well later. But you have pioneered the idea of getting your files, and you send it to your Patreon people. Can you tell people how you're doing that? How you're downloading it, and what I don't think Jason's a speaker yet, so we'll get him in as a speaker. I've just got to wait for that tech to work. But Fuse, you've got a Fuse the mic. You've got a question or a comment.
Yeah, it's Fuse the MC. Thanks for having me up. Another option that you could explore that I've seen other people doing is Android emulators. Like BlueStacks?
BlueStacks,
yeah, where you can actually do a lot of literally do most of the things you could do on a phone, but on your computer, which can allow you to easily use something like OBS or Soundflower that captures what's being done on the card, and you can just save it directly to your computer as you're going without needing the external source, and without potentially downgrading the audio.
Yeah, so that only works on Android devices. There's not an iOS version of that, is there?
No, but because it's an emulator, it kind of doesn't matter. Like, even if you don't already have an Android device, you can still emulate a new Android device and use any of the apps that run on Android. So there, as far as I know, you can't emulate with BlueStacks for iOS. You would have to use like Xcode, like literal development environments, which would probably be more trouble than it's worth. But screen mirroring is a quick and dirty, easy way to get something similar to BlueStacks. But in that case, you need an actual iPhone to do that.
Yeah. Now, BlueStacks, it's a really cool piece of tech. It's completely free. What it does is it emulates a phone on your PC. I haven't tried it yet, but several of my mates, including Block Muse, have tried this. So what you're doing is you're taking, in fact, I think that's what he used. And again, I'll find this piece of tech, this tweet for you. BlueStacks is a piece of tech that emulates your phone, sends it to your PC, and then once you've got it on your PC, you've got all the options. You can record, you can send it to Restream, may even be able to send it to StreamYard. And then suddenly we've got what we really want in the first place. We want to be able to use our PC to do cool stuff. Does that help, Annemarie? Have you heard of it?
No, I have not. I have not heard of it, but I will try that BlueStack out because that's where I'm having issues. You see, I may need an adapter, and I've had this before where I've rung up a tech company and I said I needed this, this, and this. They go, "Oh, sorry, ma'am, that hasn't been developed yet." And I thought, well, let me know when it was. Actually, that was probably a good idea for a gadget, but it is to get your phone, and I use an iPhone through through QuickTime. And you get it on your screen, so then being able to bring that into StreamYard. But of course, then if I do that, I can't bring my phone through the Rodecaster. So I've got to get either some dongle or some gadget that will allow me to do both. But I'll try that BlueStack out. That sounds interesting.
That can be a subsequent experiment. I've been meaning to do it. It's a free piece of tech. I actually have it on my PC and my laptop. I've been meaning to run this experiment. And this is what this show will be about. This will be what I'm doing each time. Today I'm going right back to basics. I've just got a headphones plugged into my phone. That's it. No tech at all. And once we've got a benchmark for what we can do in the basics, we can actually then move forward. And what I might do is I might bring George in here because Pixie uses a Zoom, the hardware company, not Zoom, the software company. She uses a product, but George has found almost a fail-safe way. I think he calls it the PodTrack P4. You want to talk about that, George, how you record? Because I think people in the group will be very helpful, find this very helpful.
Sure.
Can I finish up a thought real quick?
Sorry, yes, please do. Yes, please.
Right ahead.
I just wanted to say that when you're using the emulator, you actually can still use things like the Rodecaster Pro or Zoom H4n if you connect them to your computer as an interface. So I wouldn't worry about like losing your high quality setup to that. That's all I wanted to add, Fran.
Fantastic. Thanks. That was so helpful.
This is great. This is exactly why I'm doing this show. And so we're still on question one. How do you record? So I'm using a site today called Headliner. Annemarie is using a Rodecaster, which is a big mic. George has found this piece of tech that fits in his pocket called the PodTrack P4. He's going to be traveling soon. Just plugs it into his phone. It works every time, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. Big pocket. It's about the size of maybe 3 packs of cards. I'm a magician, so I always carry several packs of cards. So it's about 3 packs of cards. It's the PodTrack, the Zoom PodTrack P4, not the H4. That's a recorder. The P4 is a little portable mixer with a SD card in it, so it is a recorder. So at the push of one button, I can record anything that's on it. But the exciting thing about it for me was that it's got a $50 adapter. Here, I just need to look. Yeah, well, the BTA2, Bluetooth adapter 2. It's got a $50 Bluetooth adapter, goes in the side, connects automatically with my phone. Boom, bang.
Yeah.
So now I have the phone connected wirelessly. Incidentally, if you try the Zoom wires, I've been in touch with Zoom. They've sent me wires that they verified work. It doesn't seem to be a way. The hard wire does not work, but the Bluetooth works perfectly. So I'm in and out in the phone. So get this, the phone goes through the Bluetooth adapter into the P4, which is just a mixer like the Rodecaster, like any other mixer. So to the mixer, I've got my mic, I've got my headphones, I've got my laptop. Now the laptop's in and out also. So on my laptop, I use Otter, which I love because Otter, unlike Headliner, Otter gives you the real-time transcript as you're going along. So I do a lot of things where I want to go back and review what somebody just said. What's the exact words he used? Because he said it so well. I want to repeat it back to him, what he said. So having a running transcript can be very, very valuable. So on my laptop, I've got Otter going. I've got, I'll blow you away with this for a second. I've got a sound effects board called Farrago.
Yeah, tell me about that. Tell me about how that works.
I'll be happy to. I assume you could hear that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's from my laptop. It's a sound effects board. It turns out, I didn't know this, maybe you guys know, but it turns out there's a huge number of hobbyists, thousands, tens of thousands of people who collect sound effects.
Oh, wow.
As a hobby. And they record every friggin' thing you can imagine in the whole world. They've got, and there are free, I think it's called freesoundeffects.com. But just look up free sound effects on Google, and you'll find a bunch of sites that have free sound effects, and there are other ones that sell sound effects. And there's a jingle generator. You can get jingles. You can get all kinds of stuff if you just Google it. But the sound effects thing has got every sound effect you can ever imagine.
Yeah.
So if you want to have some birds chirping in the background, as I talk, we can have some birds chirping. So anyway, you can have intros, extras. You can. But all of this is connected just through this little Zoom contract.
We worked it out about $335 Australian dollars, but probably about $300 US, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. So it's a little pricey, but it's not like a $600 board, which is way, way, way overkill. But it's not quite as cheap as the Keith's board. Keith, the board you're using, you published a gazillion pictures of it, and does that have a Bluetooth adapter?
Yeah,
into
actually.
It? Well, then you're there.
It doesn't work.
That's it. Oh no. What's the matter with why doesn't it work?
This is really interesting, and I'll slightly diverge here because it's really important. The site itself works really well inside itself. It has it comes with a mic, comes with an XLR mic, comes with all these cool sound effects, comes with echo, it comes with the ability to add external sources. So I had a theme song playing and I had my headphones going. I sounded like I was on a rock station, right?
Yep.
And I had it all working out, and I sent it to Audacity. Brilliant. Absolutely self-contained, $1 million. Sounded like a $1 million. As soon as I tried to get with the Twitter Spaces format, I did a robust experiment based on your sort of expert opinion there, and I spent 3 hours, and Annemarie helped me. I got it to work with Audacity. We had it recording. I had a theme song. I had this really cool effect on my voice. I had all these great effects to add dramatic effect, and it was sounding great. Like I was just listening to myself for 3 hours. It was so cool. But as soon as I tried to get it to sync with Twitter Spaces, which is via Bluetooth, the whole chain of cards collapsed.
I would advise you to just keep playing around because it works beautifully for me. What doesn't work for me is voice tweets. I cannot put sound effects into voice tweets.
Wow.
I can just voice tweets seem to just use the microphone, and it doesn't seem to use. I don't know. It doesn't seem to work. Bluetooth,
let's keep experimenting. We've got this really diverse group, and just to put it out there as a bit of fun, I'm working. My brain is ticking on a brand new blog post. I'm going to call 22 ways to use Twitter Spaces in 2022. That's really great sort of alliteration there.
Keith, I've just got one thing to say to you.
What's that? Oh, that's right. Okay, let's do a whole chapter on interactive mode. Okay, so 22 ways. This is going to happen. We're going to do a whole show. 22 ways to use Twitter Spaces in 2022. Try saying that really fast underwater. It's really funny. So anyway, I'm just
Especially
putting it out
with an
there.
Australian accent.
With an Australian accent, man. So, Annemarie, was that helpful? I'm going to run the room and keep asking, but is this information helpful for you? Because you're new to Twitter Spaces, so I really want to pick up on this new vibe, yeah?
Look, I think any information's wonderful because you kind of sift it through. Does that, is there some of the toys? I mean, all of us here, I'm sure we love our toys. And so finding out what other people are using is amazing. And I think that's how I'm often driven to my choices, because someone's using it and they've loved it. So I think that's really helpful. One question I do have, this is going back to the way you're recording on headliner.ai. And so on there, you've got to put your URL of the Twitter Spaces. Now, is that only available for the person who has set up the Twitter Spaces, or can anyone find the URL and then pop that into the headliner?
Anyone.
Yeah. I was asking that myself, and I'm going to experiment with this maybe with Jason's podcast a bit later. I would have assumed, and I've just been sort of proven wrong there. I would have assumed that you'd have to be a host, but George, you're thinking that anyone can do it any time?
Oh, I know. I put in 2 or 3 other ones that I couldn't attend. And I wasn't sure if they're going to be recording it or whatever. I just put in the URL, gave me the transcript and recording later, or listened to it, and I erased it because I didn't have people's permission. But I just re-listened to it.
Fantastic. And so for those of us who are not sure how to get the URL,
that in public.
Sorry, George.
What's that?
You just use the URL?
Yeah, you just the card. If you tap the card, not the button on the card, but the card, you can or right-click it. You can.
Why don't we try that? Why don't we try that as a live test?
Copy URL.
So the site is called headliner.ai. I'm already recording, but if you want to try this as an experiment, just go to headliner.ai. You do need to set up an account. Takes you 10 seconds. And just punch in the URL for this event and see whether you can record.
Not everybody knows how to get the URL.
Yeah, that's what my question is. How do you get the URL?
That's in the nest. In the nest, you'll see the tweet right at the start, how to create your own podcast series using Twitter Spaces. Immediately under that is the URL. Immediately above Annemarie Coach. Can everyone see that? How to create, it's in the nest. So just go underneath
yes.
Yeah. So that's the actual URL.
Now, not everybody does that. So in the future, when you see the purple card, you click on the purple card, it'll say copy URL.
That's right.
Copy
that's
link
even
that.
An easier way to do it for anyone that's done the, so.
It's copy link, I think it says, something like that.
And I just love these types of spaces because we're right at the beginning. And yesterday, Jack resigned from Twitter. So next year, Twitter could be anything. Who knows what's going to happen? So, we need to get in early and learn the best ways to use this stuff and push it forward. I might bring Amy in to chat about how she records and what she thinks of all of this stuff with Twitter Spaces. Are you recording, Amy, and how do you do it?
Well, thanks for asking, Keith. Always a pleasure to share a stage with you. I do record. I don't, my first Twitter Spaces that, official, I ran a few Twitter Spaces just for friends and, conversations we needed to have for business. But I am part of the Creator Sparks program. So I'll be.
Oh, wow. You got the Sparks program.
Yeah. I used to run a show on Twitter for 4.5 years. From 2013 to about 2018. And so we're, bringing it back. Back then, obviously, it wasn't a space. It was a live chat. So we ran a chat every Wednesday night. And we would trend. Our hashtag would trend globally for at least a few hours, if not a couple of days. So I'm really familiar with the Twitter team. So we're going to... Thanks. We're going to translate that show into audio. So I do record shows on Otter. So I use Otter AI. And when I say my shows, I do shows on Clubhouse currently. So just random, pop-ups and whatnot. I've been waiting for Twitter Spaces Spark program. to launch my show on here. And I find Otter, I agree with George. I love that it has the transcript because as host, you're often, listening and trying to multitask and do a few other things in the DMs. It allows you to go back and for me to repeat what somebody said or to quote them or to, if I have to, when I miss something, catch up. So I like Otter for the moment, in time. And also I can repurpose it later.
But it is just the transcript. You don't get the audio, do you? Or do you?
Yes, you get the audio.
Yeah, you get audio. So I get audio and the transcript. And, right now, from the way I understand it, I haven't been able to get an answer. They were supposed to launch the recordings on Twitter this week, but I sure haven't seen it.
I've got it.
You do?
Pixie's got a screenshot of that. Do you want to put that in the nest, Pixie?
Which one? Sorry.
How to find it, what it looks like when you get the recording feature. Let me just decode on what that is.
Thank you so much, Pixie.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar. It's funny that I'm launching my program tomorrow. But yeah, I'm not familiar if it's easy to record right here on Twitter or not.
It's very easy.
That was going to be my question.
Yeah, and I'll while we're waiting for that screenshot, and this is the power of the Nest.
It's up in the Nest.
So if you scroll into the Nest, you'll see two things from Pixie. One is what your files look like when you request them, and if you're up for that, by all means do it. It takes 24 hours, and Jason has famously said that it's about 9 or 10 gig. But the next screenshot is the idea of what the recording feature is. It's just a slider that is immediately above the Start Now button, and you've either got it or you haven't. And if you haven't got it, it's coming.
Well, it's good to have all the features just because of the Spark program. I haven't tested it yet. What's confusing to me, though, because I do take my recordings from Clubhouse, they also have a recorder now and use them, is it seems to come and it's showing on this thing in the Nest, the link in the Nest, that it's like a TS is the format. It says .ts.
That's right. It's a TS file.
What kind of format is that?
It's a nothing format. It's a bullshit format. It's a bullshit format. It should be BS, right? No, I just made that up. But
okay,
TS,
so
obviously,
that's right. That there's no way to record it in a way that is in a format.
It doesn't come as an MP3. It doesn't come as a WAV file. It doesn't come in any way that human beings can use. Although Pixie has managed to do it. How do you do it? How do you convert a TS file into an MP3, Pixie?
So usually what I do is I will import it into something like Audacity, or depending on whatever your editing software is, you just import it, and then you right away you export it to whatever file type you like, MP3 or WAV, and it's user preference, right? So you just take it right away and you just transfer it into whatever you want, and then I would close down the TS file and open it back up and work on it just whatever file type that I want.
Yeah.
So I want it
the TS file does work in Audacity, does it?
Yes, but I would rather be safe than sorry and have it saved in a file type that my computer recognizes. That TS file is weird.
Is that something you could relate to? Sorry. Let's keep the conversation going.
Thinking. Sorry, Keith. Yeah, no, I'm just. Thank you, because that for me is huge. I was afraid the file type wouldn't convert well, so thank you.
Hey, can I give Amy a
please.
Otter tip? People who use Otter don't necessarily realize this. Simon Lau from Otter pointed this out. Is a really wonderful guy. When you're recording in Otter, while you're recording in the lower left corner, then after the recording in the upper right corner, there's a little picture of a person. It's the share button. When you click the share button, you can get a link. It's a special link that you don't have to be an Otter member, but you can tweet that out. So let's say we're starting a space right now. I would hook up Otter. I grab the URL, the shared URL. I tweet that out, bookmark it from my laptop. Then I grab it on my telephone and put it in the Nest. So now anybody who's in the space can click on that link in the Nest and follow along in the transcript and go back. we use this with Madeline Sklar's thing on Saturday doing Twitter profiles, because often we ask somebody, well, what are you about? Why are you on Twitter? What are you trying to accomplish? And they blurt out this wonderful thing, the description of themselves that they never had before. And we can capture it in the transcript and say, put that in your profile. So
I love that.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. So
And
as you're watching it, your whole bunch of people can be looking. They can all be looking at the transcript. It's crazy. It's wild.
I think using that for notes too, being able to say when people join the room, just go to the link above and you can catch up on what was said, or if somebody asked a question that's already been covered, being able to just refer to that instead of stop the flow of conversation.
The reason why this is very, very important is because the current functionality, and I'm very interested, Amy, to hear what you think of this, but the current functionality of Twitter as it stands is pretty weak. You know, it's not enough for people that are used to creating content. So the recording function, even though it is quite a cool idea, you can only keep the file for tick any boxes for me. So the fact that we're having this conversation of finding the transcript and getting the PDF and the MP3 and being able to send it to Audacity, these are all things that are very useful probably to every single person on this call, because you will find when you're trying to record, you'll be disappointed. You'll just be disappointed.
Headliner also allows you to make clips. We forgot to mention that.
Oh, that's right. I'm still going to explore that.
Yeah, you can make clips, and the transcript is gorgeous. The background of each person's paragraph that they said is a different color. So you can instantly scan. You can lift out. There's a feature for. That's one of its main reasons for being, the ability to grab clips. But it's after the fact, not during the fact.
Yeah, it's and you like the live feature, yeah?
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. So we're still on question one, and I'll keep going if people want to keep going with this idea. This is the essence of what will come after this. The idea that in order to turn Twitter Spaces into a podcast, we've got to find a way to record it in an easy way for you, right? So headliner.ai, otter.ai, Audacity, and if you've got a Mac, you can use GarageBand. We can also use Zoom portable recorders. Zoom, the hardware company, not the software company. They're not the same. And they're cheap. They're $200 or $300. You can just use an SD card, big capacity. Audio is 1 megabyte a minute. So you get 1,000 minutes for 1 gigabyte. I mean, you'll never run out. We might be running. Or do you want to pick up on some ideas there, Annemarie? Actually, before we do that, Brian had his hand up, and so did Torch. So I'll run the room with those two, and then we'll go to question 2. Torch was first, though. Torch, you had a question?
Great evening to everybody. And it's not that I have a question. There's a much more simple way to record your audio, which is what I do whenever I am hosting my Twitter space. I kind of run it through my mixer board into my laptop and record straight into my laptop.
And have you been able to do that with Twitter Spaces?
That's what I'm referring to. That's exactly what I do it on. Podcasting, I use a different platform, but with my Twitter Spaces, I literally run it. I use my phone. My phone's running into my mixer board, and then I'm coming out of my mixer board into my laptop and recording.
Yeah. Can I just decode there? What mixer board are you using and what phone?
My Pio. Shoot, I can tell you the model number. I have the new Flip Z. So
the Samsung Flip.
Samsung. Yeah.
You got a Samsung Flip. So does that have a USB cable coming out, or because it doesn't have a headphone jack?
It does. Nope, it doesn't. So you have to buy that attachment, which is not much at all. You buy that attachment, and that's it. Easy peasy.
Brilliant, because I've got a Samsung 21, so I've got that same problem with USB. But what mixer are you using? Let's really this is really important, guys. Put down your cup of coffee and sit down and take notes. This is absolutely the essence right here. What mixer are you using?
It is a Pile. P as in Paul, M as in Mark, X, U, 6-3, B as in boy, T as in Tom.
Wow, I haven't heard of that brand.
You haven't heard of Pile? Shit, yeah, they're real popular amongst the audio community. Pardon me. This is a 6-channel Bluetooth studio mixer, plus audio mixing console. So I have 4 mic lines I can run in. I also have the Bluetooth. I have the USB, which I use the USB to run to my PC. And then you have your headphone in, and then you have the send and return. So I use the send and return, which I learned this my first year of podcasting from using my phone. In theory, when you're using your phone, if you're trying to hook up external equipment, you have to pretty much have like a 1 in, 2 out type of thing. So a send and return. So that's what I'm using to send the data to my laptop, and then to return it back. This way people can hear me when I'm speaking in Twitter Spaces. And I've heard so many people tell me, like, fuck, your audio sounds crystal clear. And I'm like, yeah, I'm using my mixer board opposed to just using my phone. So
this is really, so the name of the brand is PYLE. I must admit I've never heard of this brand, but I've just Googled it. How much is the mixer?
I got mine from Amazon. Shoot, I think I paid maybe $75 for it.
Less than $100. Okay. This is a really good piece of tech, because a big shout out to my mate Simon in Dublin, Ireland. I'm using my headphones in the box with my Samsung 7, and he's saying it sounds a bit tinny. It just sounds a little bit weak, and that's a really good lead, because I wanted to go right back to basics just to show, and you'll see a progression over time. This is my very dinky little headphones that come in the box, adequate for fun projects, but probably not good enough for a podcast. So this is an incredible piece of news. So do you have a picture of your mixing board that you'd like to share in the nest for us? Can you share a bit about how you do your podcast or your Twitter Spaces? While we got you, why don't we just promote your Twitter Space right here? When's your next one?
Actually, it will be tomorrow, Wednesday at 8 p.m. I do a nerd space.
Wow.
Because there's so much serious stuff going on in the world that a lot of people deserve a moment to rock out and be a nerd. You know, put the pencil protector in your pocket. Have a little fun. You know, we talk about anything from comic books to superheroes, your favorite villains, just anything to kind of break up the monotony that's going on this day and age.
Breaks up the monotony of all the hard news, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We do have some journalists in the room, and I do appreciate that they have a very fantastic job to do. But look, I mean, sometimes at the end of the day, I just can't deal with it. I can't deal with all of the hard news. It's happening, and I'm not denying that it's happening. But there's only one of me, and I've got to look after my wife, and I've got to mow the lawn, I've got to do the dishes, and I've got to pay my bills. And sometimes I collapse under the weight of all the heaviness. I mean, don't you feel that sometimes too?
Absolutely. That's exactly why I started doing the nerd spaces. Plus, I get teased for being a nerd. But when you look at me, you wouldn't necessarily think with the tattoos and blah blah blah. So I totally agree with you. You know, sometimes you just need to just have a little bit of fun.
We need to nerd out, don't we?
Yes, we need to nerd out. I also wanted to add on, Keith, that I don't know if some people realize, and I had to learn this, that phantom power, aka 48 volts, running into your mic. You have to have that type of punch, if you will. That might be why your mate is telling you that you sound a bit watered down, I guess, what have you. That phantom power makes a heck of a difference. Like if I plug mine in right now, you all would easily tell a difference.
Why don't we do that? Why don't you drop out, take a 10-minute sort of tech break, and come back and show us the difference? Because really, this is what this show's about. It's about helping people on this call adjust to this brand new idea called Twitter Spaces. We know for sure that 20% of the population have never heard of it. We're doing it every day, and that's ridiculous to us. But some people have never heard of it. And when they do finally hear about it, they're going to come to us to ask these questions. But I do want to give a big shout out to my mate Simon in Dublin, who thankfully has commented on that. I think he's gone because it's pretty late there. But I am just using my headphones, and probably for most situations it's fine. But Torch is going to come back into the call in 10 minutes and show us the difference that this $100 mixer makes, yeah?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll be right back in.
So
yes, sir.
While I'm waiting for Torch to come back in with his $100 mixer, I'm going to throw to Brian, who has got his hand up. And how do you do it, mate? How do you record, and what's your experience been with Twitter Spaces?
Well, perfect segue, Keith, and hello, everyone. Hope you're having a good week. One of the topics I wanted to touch on real fast was another variation with the recording from the Twitter archive is Cloud Convert. It's pretty easy to use, and it can handle those big files. But and then also, I just have dove into Headliner and figured out, I think, the back end enough for me to run a space tomorrow. So it's just getting used to it, I think. But it looks like the only downside is it carries a link and not the file itself. So it can be beneficial, but it also could not be.
You can, once you get the file, you will get a button that says download.
Oh, maybe I just haven't gotten that far yet.
You have to do one, and so as George said, it's not translating in real time. It's translating behind the scenes, and then once the session finishes, it sort of does its magic and sends you a link, and then that link gives you three things. One is it gives you a transcript, it gives you the MP3, and most importantly, it gives you the ability to convert I'm going to find one and send it to the nest. It actually gives you the ability to take that transcript and create what they call clips. Clubhouse has this feature already, and you basically take, okay, Keith, how did you use that mixer? And there's a really sharp piece of content at, say, the 37th minute. You go in, you find it, and you turn it into this really cool clip. Gia's done this. I'm going to find that clip and send it into the nest. So what we're doing here is we're trying things on the fly, and we're teaching each other as we go. I'm going to do one of these every day forever. I learned so much from these shows. I mean, give us 100 if you're digging the whole Twitter Spaces vibe. Look how much we're learning, and more importantly, teaching each other. We're teaching each other so much stuff. I don't know everything. So, Rev, jump in and share your thoughts.
Well, hey, excellent. Thank you, Keith. First, I just wanted to say, yo, Paul, what's going on, man? We have chatted back and forth, Mr. Paul Votto and I, on Instagram. So it's nice to see that we're in the same place at the same time. And also, my question is how to create a podcast. Thanks there, Paul. It's great to see you, my friend. How to create a podcast using Twitter Spaces. Is the motivation to turn your Twitter space into a podcast, or is the motivation to make a podcast while you're on Spaces?
I'll answer that, and then I'll throw to Annemarie, and we might even run that room. This is a great question. Is your motivation to turn your Twitter Spaces into a podcast afterwards, or is your motivation to make your Twitter Spaces a podcast? I'm going to answer that question, then I'm going to throw to Annemarie and then Pixie, because I know Pixie has an answer. And put your hand up if you want to jump in and answer that. For me, Twitter Spaces is an extraordinary idea, but it seems almost criminal that it goes away. And the analogy I use is if you went for a holiday to Europe and spent 30 grand getting there and staying in nice hotels, you wouldn't have very much holiday for 30 grand. But if you decided to go for a week, you know, and you went to the Eiffel Tower and you went to the Colosseum, of course you're going to take a camera, right? Of course you want to record it so you can watch the photos and the videos later. This is exactly what I think Twitter Spaces is. We're having a great deal of fun here, but how criminal, how sad is it that it goes away? I want to listen to it again. I want to listen to it again. So for me, the Twitter Spaces comes first, and then I want to record it. And what I did last week is I turned that into a blog post. Gia turns it into a podcast. But let's run the room on this idea. Is that a good answer, Rev, before we go to Annemarie?
It is a good answer. And yeah, I'm definitely interested in what everyone else has to say about that. I was just, I can't talk about it too much, but just on a meeting with a new social media space, that social audio space that I've been invited into, and Jack's gone. So, and I'm a little frustrated with spaces in terms of them being behind in tech. But I know that you've run those rooms before. But
let me pick up on what you've just said there, and I'm going to throw to Annemarie. In Back to the Future 2, Marty McFly is sent back, Doc Brown is sent back to 1885. This is actually how I feel. I'm used to StreamYard. I'm used to Restream. I'm used to having a dashboard. I'm used to being able to record everything in one spot and getting the MP3 and the MP4 sent to my hard drive and my inbox, and then I can just merrily, at my leisure, edit away. And suddenly I feel like I've gone back to a place where they haven't even invented electricity. I'm exaggerating to make a point. But this is sort of what you're talking about, isn't it, Rev?
It is, and that is not necessarily a bad thing. The magic of Clubhouse for a long time was its exclusivity. If you're still on Clubhouse, you have probably narrowed down to some specific categories like I do, which is filmmaking and filmmakers and some shows that we do kind of regularly. But yes, 100%. You nailed it, Keith.
Yeah. And what do you think, Annemarie? Do you think we've about this idea? Do you think that Twitter Spaces is itself a podcast, or do you think you really should record it and take it somewhere else?
And to answer the question, a great question, for me it's both. It's why does it have to be either or? Remembering that any platform is a platform, and sure, it might be created natively, if I can use that term, for a specific purpose. But why, if we can't do this, is to leverage it and say, well, how can we extend the advantages of Twitter Spaces in this case to be able to, because what is it, the ultimate game, or not our game, but the ultimate goal is to develop relationships, to continue conversations, so we can have the best of both worlds. And I love the conversations that we've had previously. And I think yesterday you said, Keith, that Gia had a format where she would interview the guest first, and then the second half of the conversation would be more of the open mic, if you will, people contributing. I love that. So if we can find out, well, what tools are available that we can really leverage, create, a transcript and shorter scripts, shorter snippets of things, that just enables other people to access the content and then realise, hang on a minute, I didn't even know about Spaces. I think I'll hang out there. So I think the best of both worlds, all worlds.
It's very new, and a lot of people are not leveraging it, and we do need to help them do that. So if everyone's in agreement, I might go to the second question. But while we do that, I just want to let you know that we're in a recorded space, and the space is called How to Create a Podcast Using Twitter Spaces. We've just been riffing on the first part of that question, and that is, well, how do you record them first of all? And we've covered a lot of ground there. And when Torch comes back, we'll get him back in the call to notice the difference between his normal setup and what's called phantom power, the idea of having a mixer plugged into power and giving extra oomph. But the second question, I'm really fascinated by this because this is where the rubber hits the road. How do you edit your Twitter Spaces? Or how do you edit the file? Now, you're an expert at this, Annemarie, because you're doing it all the time. Let's start here with you, and then we'll run the room. you're using Audacity to record. Is that where you edit, or do you take it up a notch?
Yeah, I continue to edit when I do, because I have a team now that does editing for me. So I'm not 100% sure what they use, but I typically just use Audacity. It's the features and the functions are enough for me. I'm editing more so for the conversation, because sometimes what you cut out really, kind of tightens the content. But yeah, I just use Audacity.
Okay. So I'm going to run the room on this idea. So Audacity is a free piece of tech which works on both Mac and PC. GarageBand, and I might even bring Gia in on this because she recorded on both yesterday. GarageBand is a piece of tech that only works on Mac, but it works specifically for Mac. Got you there, Dan. I'll bring you in a minute. What I use, this is a really cool hack. I really love this site. I use a site called Filmora, Filmora. It's actually a video editor, but it accepts WAV files and MP3 files and exports files that can be MP3 or MP4. So if, for instance, in this context, you've got an MP3 or a WAV file, an audio file, you can load it to Audacity and GarageBand, but you can also load it to Filmora. And if you decide to put a graphic on it, you can also turn it into a video. So it's 2 for 1. It's about $50 a year. And I use it, religiously every day when I do these sessions. And I definitely will be converting this back to a file. So Dan had his hand up first, and then Rev. So what do you use, Dan, to edit, if that's indeed the answer to the question? And then I'll ask Rev what he uses.
Okay, yep. So I'm in a bit of a different situation because I'm not doing podcasts, but I am doing recordings for tutorials. And so I'm doing screen recording, and then I do all my editing in Camtasia Studio.
Camtasia, okay. Yeah.
But and the audio I'm using is just the Blue Yeti connected to my computer. So I'm not an audio expert or anything like that. But sometimes, for example, on my microphone, I've turned the gain right down. I have it close to me. But say if it's raining heavily or there's some noise outside, I still get that. And when I had a look online, I downloaded Audacity, put the audio into there, and then I wanted to get rid of some of those background noises, or even if myself, like you're making some noises in between sentences or something. So when I looked on YouTube, someone did a thing where they did like a noise reduction effect, a normalize effect, and a compressor in Audacity. And then after I did that, it got rid of those, background noises like the rain. But the problem I have was my voice sounded quite flat after I'd put it through Audacity. And I'm not sure if it's from the compressor or what I did, but just wanted to know on the room, anyone else who's using Audacity, in a basic sense, have they got any tips on how to use it?
Yeah, let's continue with this thought. What you've said there is really powerful. Audacity has a range of really cool features. Audacity is free. That's its main selling point. That's indeed not a contradiction. So, but what you said there is interesting, because you've done something and you can't work out how to fill the sound. I want to answer that question first before I talk to Rev and Gia. Annemarie, do you have a possible selection for that? Because you are an Audacity queen too. You use it all the time, don't you?
I do, but I must say that I'm not an audio. I've heard the term audio snob, but as I said, if anything needs to be tweaked, I would just send it to my team. But that's functions.
That's the answer. Outsource it.
Yeah, that's right. There are, if you go to the effects and things like that. So if you could, Dan, I don't know if you've used those. I think you mentioned that you did try, but you know what? I always say if you try and get the quality of the audio, the actual audio itself as best as you can. So I wonder if maybe you change the room or the setup of the room. So the acoustics in the room, if you can get that right, the audio, the production, you don't have to spend that much time in the production. So I would kind of advise maybe have a look at the space that you're recording, and if you can change that up a little bit, it might help with the sound quality.
Does that help, Dan? Can you do it? Can you actually fix the room so that there's not as many noises there before you record? Or is that not possible?
So I have done what I can. So I've tried to eliminate a lot of the sounds. I've got heavier curtains in the room. The problem with the room is that it's a little bit hard to describe, but you really hear the rain on the roof. So I'm all good apart from when it rains. So.
Yeah, because sometimes you can over-edit audio, and then, you know, when you strip away, sometimes you edit something and then you go, oh, taking it too far. It just sounds too, as you say, sometimes flat or sometimes tinny. So, yeah.
Why don't you send me the file, and because Filmora, this is a really good hack for what you just said. Filmora has a really powerful audio editor with a full EQ. So you can actually punch in the audio and say, look, make it sound like a big room. Or actually, let's keep it really compact and make it sound really intimate. So send me the file, and maybe we'll play in Filmora. Filmora is a paid product, so you don't want to be trying it if it doesn't work. But I'm pretty sure it will work. And,
okay. So it sounds like someone's name, but sorry, is it a product?
Yeah, FILM, Filmora.
Filmora. Okay, cool. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, got it now.
And the actual Twitter handle is Filmora_editor. It's about $50 a year. It's absolutely well worth it.
And
that's $50. Yeah, $50.
Is that what you use, Keith?
That's what I use now.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's good to know.
And that's because it has the editor for audio, but it also has the editor for video. Because video on Twitter, and you can see this for sure, the video that Kiki did has had 1,000 views. So, you know, that promoted the show, and as a result, we've got 58 people in the room. So it works. It's a very good thing. I'm going to bring Gia in a minute, but Rev had his hand up first. So, Rev, just continue that thought with the idea of audio editing, and what are you thinking?
Well, I actually here. Let's do something real quickly. I want you to listen to my voice now. I'm sitting in front of my multi-million-dollar setup. Well, not quite, but my expensive setup, which I'm not using at this point. But I have voice isolation mode on with these AirPod 3s. Now have switched to the standard mode on these iPod 3s. Now, the standard is cleaner than the voice isolation?
I reckon. Well, it seems to have more gain. Seems to be more natural. Would everyone agree with that?
Fuller.
It's a lot fuller.
But the other is better, I think.
Yeah, the voice isolation is actually where I am now, and it's actually crazy. I've been in some insanely loud environments and doing just regular conversations or conversations like this, and like people can't hear anything in the background. So it's pretty cool technology. So I wanted to let everybody know that if you have the most current generation of AirPods and a fairly new iPhone, you do have that standard voice isolation and wide spectrum available, although wide spectrum is not available right now. The other thing I want to say, Keith, is like, man, we are like kindred spirits. I was going to tell people, look, if you don't know how to edit audio, but you're doing video a lot of video editors, you can edit your audio right in there, and you might already know how to do it. So instead of having to learn a whole new system to do audio, you can do your audio on DaVinci or Premiere or some of these other places.
What do you use?
You can output it in the format. Well, I tend to be doing mostly video. So I use DaVinci. I would recommend anybody that's going to,
DaVinci Resolve, isn't it?
DaVinci Resolve. Yeah. Totally free. You can pay $300 for some high-level, features that most people probably would never need. But movies, Hollywood movies, like Premiere and these other places, they're done on this platform, and it's absolutely free to use, And so, you can. When I need to drop a quick audio file, I will go to a program like you said, Filmora or somebody. Honestly, I've never tried to kick out an audio file on DaVinci, though I would imagine it's possible. But yeah, there are other audio video programs that you can use to do.
I love this.
Your audio.
I'm learning as much as everyone else in the room. This is great. Big shout out to Rev for that. So that particular piece of tech is called DaVinci Resolve. It's free. I'm guessing it's DaVinciResolve.com, but let's just Google that.
Yeah, it's made by Black. It's made by Black Magic. So, but if you just Google DaVinci Resolve, you'll get to a link pretty quickly. And I would just say that for me, this is my profession, right? This is what I do, and so the audio and everything is super important. It's nice and convenient that I can use these headphones. But if I were hosting a space, I'm going to be on my Shure SMB7, through my XR mixer, through my DAC, through my Focusrite, and everything. I'm going to do it that way and have it sound great. And the other thing I want to say, Keith, when you become a billionaire, because I'm quite certain you will, you're still going to hack things. I love your hacker thing. Like, I could get $1 million thing, but I can hack this one for $24 and do just as good a job.
I want to ask everyone a question. You picked up on a really key point. If you had $1 million in Bitcoin, just say, I don't know anyone who does, but if you did, would you keep going or would you just live it? Like, I go to the beach every day. Like, there comes a time where barefoot on the grass, sitting in the sun, is actually better than working. So sometimes I just sit in the grass with my bare feet, look at the sun, talk to the birds. And you're right. When or if I become a billionaire, I'm still going to sit in the grass. I'm not addicted to working. I mean, I work as much as I want to, but I go to the beach every day. And is that what you're sort of saying, Rev, that even if we had more money than we could spend, we'd still be hacking, right?
Well, yeah, 100%. I mean, that's what's so much fun about all this and having access to all this. And it's how you learn, right? You hack into something and figure it out. You ask my dad how many things I took apart and put back together. Most worked, but not every part was needed. And I always wanted to tell the manufacturers, you really didn't need these 3 or 4 other parts when I took my dad's, $1,000 audio system apart. You didn't need these things.
Yeah. That's great news. And look, I really want to bring in Gia. I might give her a couple of minutes because Gia is like the quintessential mumpreneur. She works tirelessly, but she has the phone in the pocket and she's doing other things, taking care of the president, sitting by the pool. So, Gia, when you're ready, I'd love to hear how you went yesterday, because what you did yesterday was you recorded the headliner and then you are going to use GarageBand and probably Audacity. So how did you go? And just yell out when you're ready. Find a quiet space in the room. There you are.
Hi, Gabe. Hi, everyone. This is Gia here, reporting from Asia. We just woke up. It's 8 a.m.
Yeah.
All right. So yesterday was a 4-hour, almost a 4-hour space. And what I do is with my spaces, at first I started recording with Headliner AI. However, sometimes I found out that if we were recording, it was multiple of us recording in case one of us, crashed or something. So we were recording together. And one of the files actually, a sound from the computer leaked into the recording. I don't know how that happened, but so you have to be careful when you're recording with Headliner AI, is that you have to make sure you're not playing YouTube videos in the background or something, because sometimes it could leak. I don't know how that happened, but it happened. So with GarageBand, I started with Audacity. By the way, I'm like a kindergarten in editing audio. So I have zero experience in this. I'm very good at editing videos and adding audio to it and editing that, but not editing raw audio from the beginning. It's definitely not not in my skill set. Yeah. So I started with Audacity, and it was very complicated for me, honestly. For someone who just started this, it was very, very complicated, and I saw that it was going to take a very long learning curve, and I didn't have the time to do that because I host my shows weekly. So I had to make sure I published that episode just before the next one comes in, because I didn't want the work to pile up.
You've got to have a bit of a workflow, haven't you?
Yes, exactly. So then I looked it up online, different other alternatives for Audacity, and I found GarageBand. And I just fell in love with GarageBand. I'm sure that it's not as powerful as Audacity is, but for editing Twitter Spaces, for me, it's enough for now. Because one of the things that I realized between editing live audio and editing recorded audio, live audio takes a long time to edit because there's a lot of background noise from other speakers. There's a lot of transitional phases. There's a lot of pauses. Oh, is my mic okay? Is my mic not okay? So keep that in mind. When you're recording Twitter Spaces and you want to convert them into a podcast, do not spend too much time editing, because it will take all your day, especially for like 4 or 5 hour spaces. Like for my space yesterday, which is like 3.5 hours, I realized it's either people hear the content or I sit down and perfect the audio. So which one is actually my goal? Is for the people to have access to the content. I mean, of course, you're not going to leave it completely raw. You're not going to edit out things, but clean it up, but just don't spend too much time trying to edit live audio, because it's a completely different animal than recorded audio.
Oh, it's a time sink, isn't it? And it's a time suck.
Yeah, definitely. So then it's up to you. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you, have you thought of using Filmora anyway? Because you love Filmora.
I do. I'm actually surprised that you said that they do. I mean, I don't know why I use Filmora for video and audio. I just never thought about it. You know what I mean? Like I use it for video, and I add my tracks to my videos through Filmora too, and I edit it. But I never thought of it as an audio auditing tool. So I'm just going to try it. I'm going to try it today.
All you do, when this is all you do, when you actually are rendering the file, instead of rendering it as an MP4, you simply render it, export it, as an MP3. That's it. That's all. That's the only difference. So do everything you're normally doing, because you're using it every day anyway. Mm-hmm. And then when you go to export it, just push MP3, and it just takes the video out. Genius! Such a time saver.
I never thought of that. I'm going to try this today.
Because you've got to find a system for this now. You're doing a show every week, and you're a mum, and you've got clients, and you want to live life. You've got to go to the pool sometimes. You don't want to be spending your whole life on your computer editing audio. I can tell you for sure, I do not want to spend my whole life on my computer editing audio. There's a million things I'd rather be doing.
Yeah, that's how I felt with Audacity.
Yeah.
I'm just going to spend my entire week learning this.
But look, if everyone's fine, I might move forward. Has anyone got any last questions about recording before I then move to the second question, or maybe even the third question now, which is the idea of hosting. So does anyone have any last thoughts about editing? If you do, put your hand up. If not, I'm going to move forward to the third question, and that is hosting. Once you actually edit the file from Twitter Spaces or whatever, you've got to host it somewhere so that that service can then send it out to Spotify and all these other sites. So, Annemarie, let's start with you. How do you host the site, and where do you send it?
So I am going to be hosting all of my Twitter Spaces just on Blueberry. However, if people are using the smaller package, which is what I typically recommend, and I've always used Blueberry. I know that there's Libsyn, which is another great service. I know that there's also Anchor, which is more of a free. But of course, with such a larger file, you're going to have to, upgrade your package. But I use Blueberry, and that pushes it out to all of the different, the major players and so forth. That suits me well, and that's what I'm going to be doing.
So that's blueberry.com without an E, isn't it?
That is correct.
Yeah. And where do you send it?
It goes to multiple different places. So obviously Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, and a lot of other ones as well. I can get a list, actually. There's so many. Let me get the list and I'll show you. So we'll go around the room, and then I can come back to me and I'll tell you exactly where they push that out to.
Yeah. So this is a really good link. I've sent it as a DM to our back channel. Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. It's one of the original podcasting hosting services, because once you convert it to MP3, most people in the room probably know this, so I don't want to teach you to suck eggs, but just for those that don't, you're going to have to send it to a site that then distributes it to Spotify and Spreaker and the hundreds of other podcasting channels that are coming up every day. So the big question for me with this idea is, which ones work best. My gut feeling is that Spotify is leading the charge, but I'd be very interested in your thoughts. While Annemarie's finding that data, put your hand up if you're using if you've got a favourite hosting site you want to share. Gia, what did you decide on for in the end? Did you decide on Podbean? Is that the one that we're going with for your podcast?
Okay. Yeah, I did take a look. I'm the type of person that I have to really shop around before I make a decision. So I did look around a lot, and I was looking for a hosting site that would have an app.
Ah, wow. Okay. Yeah, cool.
Keith, I've got that list if you want me to share as you go around the room. So obviously Apple, I mentioned, it goes to Google, Spotify, Amazon Music, Android, Pandora, although I have to check. I don't think Pandora accepts Australian podcasts. That could have changed. iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Blueberry has a directory themselves. GeoSpan, Podchaser, Ghana, Podcast Index, obviously via email, TuneIn and Deezer.
And which ones, there's a lot of them, but which one works best? Which one do you get the best hits? Because you love numbers as much as me. Which one's working?
Apple.
Ah!
Yeah, Apple has a very strong analytics.
Better than Spotify.
Yes. Although Spotify definitely is topping charts and that for listeners and things like that. But if I go back to our our stats, it's definitely Apple.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's great. So Apple, obviously, for people on iPhones and Apple products, is leading the charge. The big advantage of Spotify is two big advantages. One is it works on Android, and second of all, Spotify owns Anchor. Anchor is Anchor.fm. Anchor is a hosting site which is free. So if you're really at the very beginning and you can't afford or you can't be bothered paying, and even if you had $1 million in Bitcoin, why should you pay, right? This is what Rev's thinking. You might as well get the free stuff if you can. Anchor.fm is a free hosting site that allows you to send your files to Spotify and probably others. But Annemarie's suggesting that Apple works best. Gia, what did you decide to use? I think you dropped out there for a minute. What did you decide to use?
Yeah, I got a phone call. Sorry about that. Okay, so I decided to go with Podbean just because from all the research I have done, everyone was saying that it was easy to use, it was easy to distribute, and but then I found Captivate.
Captivate.
Yes, and I love Captivate. It's an entire dashboard for podcaster. You can book your appointments there. You can have it's just massive. Take a look at it. I think it's captivate.com. Let me just double check. But Captivate is definitely something that I would definitely look into when I grow this podcast. But I would love to take from seasoned podcasters, which platforms have you used and what to look for when you're looking for a hosting platform, because that was my struggle too. Where to go? What kind of things do I look for when I'm looking for a hosting site? Because there's so many of them. It's so hard to pick. So for now, I went with Podbean just to answer your question, Keith.
I think we lost him, guys.
Yeah, I think I thought I was the only one here.
No,
I'm back.
I hear you.
I'm back.
Welcome
I'm
back.
I got rugged. It's a phrase we use now. The carpet was pulled. The rug was pulled out from under my feet. So I'm back, and hopefully we didn't lose too much of that signal. But Pixie's had her hand up for a while. Then I want to bring Torch in to talk about his new experiment, and then I'm going to bring Paul in. So I'll do that order. Pixie, what do you use to host, and what do you recommend?
So for my main podcast, I use Podbean. And
Podbean, okay.
I use Podbean because there's a lot of different functions and features with Podbean. Podbean just came out with a transcript. So I've got the email. I'll probably have to share that to you guys, especially if you want transcripts of your episodes and you don't. I haven't used it yet, but I did get the email. Now, the advantage to having like Anchor, which is a free one, Well, it's free. And if you're not sure about your podcasting, how long you want to take it in, how serious you want to be, not spending a whole bunch of money, because I do have the premium package in Podbean, but I don't have, I'm not spending a lot for my newest podcast, but I can always transfer it over. The great thing about Anchor is because it is with Spotify, you can now upload videos to Spotify through Anchor.
Yeah.
And we did talk about this last week, but that is a huge benefit for somebody who wants to do a podcast plus video. So think about that kind of thing, because that's not available for everybody. It's strictly Anchor right now. So you have
does it only do Spotify, or does it also send it to Spreaker and others, or is it really an ecosystem?
It only sends it. The video only gets sent to Spotify. When you upload it, it's either the video for Spotify or it's an audio file for everybody else. So on Apple, it'll show up as an audio file. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, well, I'm very interested in Anchor because it's owned now by Spotify. Anchor started in 2015. Just in case anyone thinks Clubhouse, invented this idea, and I didn't. I absolutely did not invent this idea. It's been around for such a long time. So,
Keith, one question I have of
yes,
Pixie, I think you were talking to her about Podbean. Now, does Podbean allow you to keep some of your episodes, those that you want to, private?
Yeah, you can either do private or you can do public on Podbean.
Great. Thank you.
That's brilliant. So I will bring you in, Paul, in a minute, but I want to bring Torch in because he went to the trouble of going out and coming back. I'd love to hear the new sound that you're making now with your, with phantom power, and see if we can tell the difference here on Twitter Spaces. Yeah, we've got you. So what are you using
Podbean,
and how does it differ?
Yeah. For me, Podbean, I've had one heck of an experience with Podbean. To me, it wasn't really worth what I went through. I got trolled heavily, called all type of racial slurs that were very derogatory. For someone paying $38 a month, I thought it was ridiculous. I went through having my image captured via screenshot by several trolls. I make dummy accounts, go into other live podcasts, and then go to me. So they come to defame me, and it blew my mind because I'm like, dude, I'm not even a celebrity for someone to want to do that. So I would say be careful, because it's a beautiful thing with Podbean in regard of being able to have this live podcast to bring in a live audience.
Yeah.
They can only comment. They can't really join the show. But, I mean, the crap that people comment and say, it's ridiculous. So that was my disadvantage. But the advantage is you have a chance of certainly reaching a wider demographic.
Yeah. Because it's just such a good syndicator, isn't it?
It is. It definitely is. They just make it way too easy for people to be able to steal your image. And I wasn't the only one. Several people.
Was that your concern? You go, George.
Yeah, this does not sound very good, Tor. It sounds like your wave is dropping off at the end of each word. It sounds like a gated gain of some kind, where it just drops right off. It sounds choppy. Whatever you're doing now doesn't sound good to my ears.
Me either. I thought it was my internet, to be honest.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it, but it's a bit softer. It's not as impactful.
I don't have
like
the
there's
volume
a thrush
either.
It's like there's a threshold.
Yeah, that's
Better.
right. It's like
that
it's
is
gated.
better, actually.
Like it's
Gated, exactly.
Is it better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't have the. I'm a stoner. I didn't have the stereo function up. It was down way too low.
Yeah.
You sound like a villain from your nerdy.
Yeah, you sound much better now.
My apologies.
You sound like the villain from your space.
But it does
I didn't have
still sounds a bit gated, though. It sounds like dropping off. Not as much.
Yeah,
Not
but,
as much.
It's interesting
Much
because,
better.
I mean, and George, you said this. I'm very interested based on what we're hearing here with Torch. I'm using a piece of tech that came in the box. Is this as good as many of the people on the call, or would I benefit from really plugging in a better mic?
I think you sound terrific.
Yeah, you
aside from that horrible Australian accent.
Oh, that horrible Australian
great.
accent we have down here.
You sound wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, this is a informal audio medium. And just picking up on what Gia said before, don't go crazy with editing. Your brain edits this kind of stuff out. This is informal conversation. And when you have and a yeah and stuff like that, your brain just filters it out anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Why spend all this time?
You know, Samantha Postman said yesterday, this is really interesting. Samantha Postman said yesterday that she believes that Twitter Spaces will be the new book. Everyone has been suckered into writing a book. Maybe they want to write a book, but some people have been suckered into writing a book because they then said it's the postcard, it's the business card. You'll get more speaking gigs if you have a book. Samantha Postman said that Twitter Spaces, the ability for me to just talk into my headphones and for you to hear me with an Australian accent in bare feet, walking around the house, that's me, and you get the 100% Keith experience. You don't get that.
You want all of but you want all of it, because I've written a couple of books and I've gotten a huge number of speaking gigs all over the world from the book. The book is your calling card. But now I'm writing a live book called the Mind Skills Playbook, where as I put up new pages, I'm going to have spaces associated, that is discussions associated with the pages. If the discussion's good, the audio can go right in the book.
That's right.
Because it's not a book anymore. It's a live thing on a website. There's no such thing as books anymore. Books in, paper pages between hard covers or soft covers, that's nonsense. That's not going to be here anymore. But other stuff that's on your iPhone or iPads or that live stuff, that's going to be real.
Yeah, I love that idea of reading something, then just clicking on it. And I did a blog post about this. I'll find it and put it in the nest. Gia interviewed me last week. I took the transcript from Headliner. I highlighted the 4 questions or something, and then just took the transcript. The podcast was at the top if you want to listen to it, and the questions were typed out. I'm going to do that again and again.
Yeah, like for instance, if I'm going to write about creative problem solving, then I'm going to run some spaces where we're doing creative problem solving and we're generating new ideas. And then when one of them is really, really great, I'll put that in the book so you can hear a bunch of people generating new ideas according to the methodology that I laid down. So that it brings the whole thing to life. It's a whole different thing.
That's brilliant. Now, Paul, you've had your hand up for a while. You jump in, Annemarie, there, and then I'll just go to Paul.
Okay, yeah, great. Sorry, Paul. Look forward to hearing what you have to say. Just one question, and I think someone asked this, about what should I be looking out for. And I'm having a look kind of on Podbean, but as businesses, just one of the things that I will often just give people an awareness of, whatever platforms that you are using, what you want to make sure of in a business is that even if it is a third-party platform, be mindful of how much, I don't want to use the word authority, but how much of that third-party platform you give access to. Because if that third-party platform suddenly disappeared or said to you, you can no longer, publish your podcast here because we don't agree with what you're saying, or whatever it is, they go broke, or some of the free platforms, be mindful how they're monetizing, because if they can't monetize and then they have to shut down their platform, there goes your content. That you have to have your own space, your own assets that you own. So have your own website and have whatever, your podcast on your website. So even if some service shuts down, you can easily download, all of the episodes and upload that to another one. It's streamlined. And I know some of these, we do everything. You have your website here and all of those things. Remember, it's a third-party platform that you don't necessarily own. So that's just one thing that I wanted to share with people.
Some things are worth paying for, aren't they?
Yes, but as long as you have more control, that's the word that I was looking for, more control over, so that,
no worry. Look, I'm going to keep running the room. This is a really great space, and I'm so great that I'm recording. I've just checked that it is recording. Why don't you jump in, Paul, and tell us what you're doing there, how you use podcasting, and what sites you use, and these types of things. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. I realized what an idiot I am because earlier I was like, let me raise my hand. And I was like, what's going on? I was like, it looks like I've been waving goodbye to everybody and then not leaving. So now I know which is hands up and which is goodbye. Like, goodbye. Like, no one's calling on me. What's going on? So I figured it out. So I had maybe also even a question, and I was using I'm using Spotify or Anchor, I should say. And it was because it was part of a contest by Rode, the microphone people. They challenged people to do a 2-minute podcast, which was great. I think it was great for the industry. It motivated people to submit 2-minute podcasts, which then became 2 of my podcasts, which is the Super Secret Celebrity Show and Cool Immigration Stories. But So I've been using Anchor, and I know it's kind of divisive because I know some people are like, well, it's a free site, but they collect your info, and I don't know, I don't know all of that, but I'm like, it was just very convenient to use. Yeah. And then, especially when my laptop went down. So now I'm just pretty much doing anything with my phone, and it works brilliantly as far as bringing in other speakers. It's so convenient. Now, I know that I'm sure the quality is not like if I were to use my PodTrack P4, which I'm a big fan of. And originally I bought it so I could record Clubhouse rooms, with people's permission, of course. And so I was happy with that. But in the meantime, now that I'm just using my iPhone, Anchor just, for me, seems to work great. Now, my question also, and maybe today's not the time for this question, but it is about blogs and things like that. And I've heard it come up a few times where of course, we want to repurpose our content and the transcription, but also what you guys touched on, which it doesn't have to be perfect. So if I were to transcribe a live, a Twitter live, do I then, and then, download the transcript and I put it up as a blog, am I meant to go through the blog and, make corrections, or are people being forgiving and do you just put this transcript up and then sometimes it doesn't kind of make sense because
I'll answer that and then I'll throw to Annemarie because I did this yesterday. So I haven't yet turned this into a tweet, but yesterday I bought the URL virtuallyunlimitedaudio.com. I went and bought that URL and it's now pointed at Gia's interview. Virtuallyunlimitedaudio.com goes to what you've just said. And the way I did it was that we put the podcast at the top of the podcast, of the blog post, so that people could just listen to it. But then what I did was I took individual questions from the podcast itself and took the transcript of that and tidied it up so that it made sense. And it took me a couple of minutes, but I would say yes. I would prefer, if I was going to read that it was in sort of common sense language. And I use a site called Yoast.com, to just check the SEO-ness of it. And there's a concept called the Fleisch indicator, and natural speech is the best type of words anyway. So I've got 80 out of 10, 80 out of 100, 8 out of 10 for that speech. So I'll send that to you as an example. But I would prefer, personally, if you're going to go to the trouble of putting in the transcript, that you just don't dump it there, that you try and make it read pretty easily. And I'd love your thoughts on this. Is that what you'd recommend, Annemarie?
Yeah, absolutely. I've used Otter, and I know with Blueberry they have a site that transcribes too. But because the English, and I think there's something about the Aussie language, some of these the AI doesn't really understand. So I actually have as part of my team who transcribes, and it is in English. I mean, we have email copy that we do. We have comprehensive show notes, and this is all with SEO in mind. We have social media copy, so for Twitter, for this, for LinkedIn, and so forth. We also have a workbook as well. So and this is part of our business, obviously, which is why I have a team member that does this. However, we find that it really helps with people who may come across to the show notes, to the actual website itself, have a look at the highlights, and then go, oh, I think I need to listen to this. Oh, I'll download the workbook. And so we create multiple different mediums from that audio, but the transcription, to answer your question, is not just from AI and we dump it. There is a team member that actually goes through and makes sure that it is legible.
You've got the perfect answer for everything because you know what to do. You just get someone else to do it. Just outsource it.
Yeah. And now what I do is I actually go back to my guests and say, and the reason I do this, I'll tell you why. I didn't just, I'm going to do this. I had a guest on the show and I interviewed her and she said, do you transcribe these things? I said, well, no, I don't really. We only have, the AI that we use. She said, if you ever do, can you come back? I will buy it off you. She said, because the topic that I have just spoken about is something that I'm thinking of writing a book, and you've actually asked some questions which I think add so much value, even deeper than I even realised that I should talk about. And so now what we do is once our show gets published, I actually go back to the guests, and not that they're obligated to do this, but I say to them, look, for a small fee, you can get access to the email copy, your show notes. We even give, snippets of audio. And I would say, a small portion of those businesses say absolutely, we would love that. And actually I've now partnered with an AI company who looked at our show notes and what we are creating, because one of their team members was a guest on my podcast, and they said, we've never seen so much comprehensive show notes at everything. We would love to partner with you and get our AI to look at this so that we can continue to develop this out for podcasters. So that's kind of an offside. But yes, we do spend time and money in a team member that does this, and it's definitely paying off for us. Yeah.
Definitely worth it, isn't it?
Yeah,
definitely worth taking the extra. Does that help, Paul? I know it's probably not the answer you want, but can you see yourself doing that?
Yeah. Well, I think it's all about, trying to save time, but I agree, because I wouldn't want to read something that was just in horrible English or just not understandable. So yeah, but I was kind of surprised when you said it took you a couple minutes to do it. Now, if I could do that in a few minutes, then I'm fine with that. But if it takes me
I'm sending you a DM on this, and please yell out.
Perfect.
Just DM me if you want a copy of this. It just happened, so I haven't turned it into a tweet yet. But I simply took the questions from the transcript with Headliner, and I copied and pasted them into a blog post, and just did a little bit of editing. And, the whole blog probably took me 1 hour in total, and I just sort of put it all together and pumped it out. And it's there now. It's another extension of that wonderful interview that Gia did. Twitter, you can also get it at Twitter spacesdecoded.com, because Gia went and bought that URL. And so, it's all about repurposing. This is what we're all trying to do. We've got to save time, but I just can't stand that Twitter Spaces goes away. So I'm grabbing whatever I can, and I want to keep it moving. So I've sent you that, Paul. I want to go to Scatter Chatter. Some great comments there, and he's had his hand up for a long time. And then we'll go to Pierre Carley, and then we'll go back to Torch. What do you think in Scatter Chatter?
Hello, Keith. How you doing? I want to say hello to Pixie, George, Gia, and Kiki. I think Kiki's down somewhere. How you guys doing? I just had a question real quick for Pixie about the video that goes into, I believe it's Anchor. Is there a specific format? Can I use MP4s, movie files? Or how long do they need to be? Is there a limit on that?
Pixie's in there. She's still there.
Is she there?
Sorry, missed the question because I'm snacking.
Pixie, the video that goes into, I believe, Anchor to go to what was it, Spotify. Yeah, is there a specific format and length of time that you can do for that?
The video that I uploaded was just your standard video file, and it was 3 minutes, and there was no issues to it. Let me share the video up into the nest that I shared in my my other account. Hold on, give me a second. Sorry, guys.
Okay, no problem.
I'm not very fast.
Because I do a lot of like digital strategy stuff, so I'm trying to figure out like compression and all that stuff. Because we're really technical, like as far as like what we use.
I'm not technical, so
I know.
I shared I shared the video of how to upload it on Anchor to Spotify.
Okay, it's up in the nest.
Yep,
oh no, it's so good. Isn't it good? Like we all want to do this, and we all have different skills. So you can go all out and buy heaps of tech, and you can spend hours on it. I spent 3 hours trying to get my mixer to work yesterday, and I didn't mind doing that. At the end of the day, it didn't work. It was a waste of time. Now I'm just on a headphone. So somewhere in between, we all sit. Did that answer your question, Scatter Chatter? Or is that she
totally
still
did. Yeah, she did that. Thank you so much for having me up. I appreciate it.
No worries.